Welcome everybody to our last week of this whole month of International Mental Health segments with so many guest speakers and so much wisdom that we've been blessed with to receive. But I mean, tonight I got, I don't know, my heart is really open and I'm so happy to be introducing this amazing human being that I've known for over 30 years.
30 years.
That's right. And I remember I even remember the first times that I used to go to see Ross Wilson in Coburg, but another side that used to be in the gallery, I remember. So Ross is a naturopath and iridologist. I mean, there's so many things. I mean, even before we went live, we were just in front of Ross and he was actually, you know, giving us an assessment of what was going on with our bodies. And so we're very happy to have you on board. Thank you so much, Ross. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, so you're based in Melbourne and in Coburg Health Shop.
Yes.
So if you want to tell us a little bit about, especially iridology, because and just a little bit about what you do, but especially about those modalities that are probably not that well known.
Okay. To all the people listening and watching, I'm Ross, and I've been doing this for 35 years, or probably years, and I became interested in iridology earlier on the piece when I had a herbalist working for me, and he ran sessions initially, and so once we got from there, it just snowballed over the years. So look, and I've seen probably tens of thousands of patients, and you know, we look at the eyes with there's a lot of information we can get from the eyes. So we know that they say the eyes are the window to the soul, and that's probably quite right. But also, it's the opens up the rest of the body. So we know that there's many modalities. We look at the skin, we look at the hair, we look at the tongue, we look at the hands. But the eyes are directly connected to the brain, and the brain is directly connected to the rest of the body. So what registers in our nervous system goes to the eyes. And this goes back, like, I guess you could say that we inherit the characteristics from our parents, so the genetics, the strength, but also the weakness as well. So that will show up as an inherited weakness, but we might sort of add to that with our diet and stresses in our lives. I've got a little iridology chart here.
But Ross, do you look at like inflammation? What is it specifically? Because I mean, I've been so many times to see you, and I know that you look at my eye and you say, oh, there's a weakness here.
Normally, I bring a torch across so it sort of shows the shadows. And so we look at inflammation, we look at toxicity, residue, and we notice that probably 90% of people have a compromised digestive system. So if you can imagine, we look at the eyes like a clock, but we also look at it as a map of the eyes. So if a person has issues with the knees or the legs or the feet, normally that comes in at 6 o'clock in the iris. And if we're looking at problems that may be associated with the head, we're looking at 12 o'clock in the iris. So each part, and I think it was probably in the 1600s, or I'm not quite sure, around about 1600s, there was a Belgian boy who, he had caught an owl, but unfortunately the owl's leg was broken when he was trying to contain it. Anyway, he nursed the owl back to health, and what he noticed, the owl's got quite big eyes, and he noticed a line going down through where the so-called leg was being healed. So he then started to paint or draw irises of people that had conditions like kidney conditions, liver conditions, and he found that every one of them showed up in a similar. So if a person had a problem with the kidney or kidneys, that would show up at either 4 or 5 o'clock in the eyes. So that he built up a whole lot of information from that over the years. Now, I know that just about on every continent, there's every country has, or most of the continents have their own charts in the iris. So it's been around for probably hundreds, maybe thousands of years, who knows.
Yeah. And it's quite accurate, isn't it? Because I mean,
well, what we've found, and I was just saying before, I had somebody asking, what about the science? I said, well, yes, there is science, but it's mainly an art as well. So everybody, if you're well conversed with the eyes, you can sort of pick up combinations of issues. And I've been quite fortunate. It's not just the eyes, but it's what reflects back into me as well. So as we were saying before, your energy is in contact with mine somehow, even though we're at a distance. So sometimes I'll feel other people's pain. And that gives me also that little bit of confidence that we're picking up on the right areas.
Well, you were very accurate before we started talking about what I was feeling, and I was actually going to having some therapy for what I'm feeling, and the same thing with Christian. So yes. You're very accurate.
So thank you. Amazing. So I can give you a few stories. I'll just quickly put this up if you can see that. So that's a copy of a iris chart.
Uh-huh.
So
and is the right completely different to the left, or is that, how does that work?
Sorry, that again?
Is the right eye different to the?
It is the right and the left eye has, if you can imagine, all the organs on the left side of the body is more towards the female, which is the mother. The the right eye is more, or the right side is more to the father. So if there's a genetic predisposition for arthritis or heart problems, if it's it'll show up on the father side if he's got an issue. If it will show up on the mother side if she's got an issue. So basically when you're looking at the eyes, you're not only just looking at the, we mainly focus on the digestive system, and that's where everything begins and ends, I guess. So we always say death begins in the colon, and we can measure our longevity by how well our digestive system's working.
And that would be a big thing at the moment, and for many decades actually, because our diet, it's been sort of going downhill for many, although many have become more aware and maybe more aware about the nutrition.
If you start to listen to your body, and I think, we probably know ourselves, but it's not until it's pointed out that we actually feel the pain, or we understand that we've got a problem. So basically what we're saying is if you've got a liver problem, you're talking about the left and right. If we've got kidneys on both sides, we've got a lung on both sides. So sometimes we know if you get a pimple on this side, it comes up on the other side as well. And I had an interesting case going back probably a few years ago. I had a gentleman from Italy. He was coming over to visit his cousins, and the cousin brought him in, and she told him to roll up his leg, or the trousers on his left leg. Anyway, he'd apparently had a shovel, and he came down and cut into his leg. And so it was all blistered and quite nasty, and it'd been like that for quite a long time. I think he might have got golden staph with that. Anyway, the cousin said, show Ross your other leg. So he pulled up his trousers, and there was an exact scar on the other side, yet he'd only wounded one side. It was like a scar that you'd get across the hands, or, from a surgery or a cut or something like that. So,
and does that always happen?
Yeah, well, normally sort of if there's stress on one kidney, it's going to put pressure on another. So we'd understand that. And if you've got any problems in the lungs, if one lung is not working properly, we might have a bit of scar tissue or have a tendency for more bronchial problems. It'll probably put pressure on the other side. So, while you work on one, you work on two. And, obviously stories talking about the digestive system. I had the benefit of seeing a client with a tumor in the brain behind the eyes. This is going back 20 years ago. And when she came across to see me, she said, well, the doctors said, I've got 9 months to live, and said they can treat me, but they can't cure me. So anyway, when she came and I looked into the iris, and I said, your problem is actually associated with the large intestine. There's actually quite a bit of toxic residue sitting in there, probably sitting there for, months, if not years. And I said, this is literally sending poisons into your bloodstream, and it's going indirectly to the sinus nasal area. And I said, this is where you've got to heal, even though the tumour's up in the eyes. Anyway, she thought, okay, I can do that. So anyway, we detoxified her, and she came in each fortnight, and, you know, she was doing quite well. And then on the 8th week, when she came in, she said, Ross, I thought I'd better let you know I blew my nose and some jelly stuff came out last week. And I said, oh, what colour was it? She said, it had a pink colour. And I said, oh, interesting. I said, I think you've just blown your tumour out of your nose. Anyway, she came back a fortnight later and she said, they cannot find the tumour any longer.
Oh, wow.
So that was 20 years ago, and she's still alive. So
that's how I met you, Ross,
yes.
30 years ago, with someone that a loved one from our side of the family, and he was given 6 months to live, and he went to see you. And I remember when he went to see you, we didn't know much about this type of medicine, and with my mom, we were like, oh my God, you know, he can't leave the doctors, but he went to see you after trying so many things with the general practitioners, and he came with a bag, and he had all his vitamins, and
there was it. Yeah. I was on the spine, if I remember rightly.
Huh?
I was on the spine, if I remember rightly. Is that right?
Yeah. So he was only 23, and he was given 6 months to live. But I mean, he healed.
Yeah, which is
sorry.
And I think it's really interesting, Ross. I mean, obviously there are examples, and obviously you've seen tens of thousands of people over the years, and there is, I guess, a resistance to have a look at different. You know, there's a combination of Western, but there's also a question of Eastern medicine as well. And it's that holistic view of that the body is just energy, right? And what we
well, they do say that within 15 hours of conception, the full hologram is formed around the baby rather than the physical being. So as the baby's in the womb, of course, that sort of the tissue builds up in the different sections. So, you know, we have a different vibration in the heart as we do to the liver. I worked with a little bit of Chinese girls over the chakras, and she sort of taught me, she said, Ross, she said, the heart vibrates at 520 nanometers, the lungs vibrate at 550, the throat at 475 nanometers. So we know then we've got an injury that the body's got to be directed, or the healing's got to be directed to that particular part of the body. So because of, we know that a person that has lost a finger or a leg or a foot or a toe, even though they haven't got that organ or the muscles there, they still feel the pain. So the vibrational energy or the hologram is still there. So sometimes even on a healing process, and I had the benefit of working with somebody that had multiple tumours in the chest area and one on the adrenal glands, and everything cleared up except for the one on the adrenal glands. And the specialist said, look, we must get rid of this. He said, you know, it's grown slowly. We're happy that all the other tumours have gone. And so they came back to me, and the specialist said, look, you know, I think we should operate on this. The family came to me and said, look, you know, what do you think? I said, look, it's a hard one for me to answer. I said, the other ones have disappeared, but this one's slightly grown. I said, let me introduce you to a doctor that might be able to give you more of a solution. I said, I don't mind being involved in it. Anyway, before he got to see this doctor friend, they decided to go through the operation. Now, they removed the tumour, but 7 days later, the tumour came back again, larger than what it did before. Now, the specialist was horrified. He wouldn't have expected this. I rang up my doctor friend. I said, what do you think? He said, Ross, he said, they've removed the tumour, but they haven't removed the emotions from it. I said, the emotions is still there. So, and it grew aggressively. And I remember, you know, he was quite upset that his daughter was left to go overseas with a husband, and that sort of, he wanted his family around him. So he had a lot of emotions or anger in there. So unable to release those emotions or deal with them, unfortunately, the tumour came back. Now, unfortunately, didn't survive in the long term because it just grew so rapidly. And so, you know, we know the importance not only of nutrition, but also to identify underlying issues. And I've had, you know, just to get off track here, but I had one client who had a tumor in her liver, and they gave her 9 months as well. So anyway, I talked to her and I said, look, you know, we can cleanse up, we can give you supplements. And I said, they work very well, but if you're still, the liver is an anger organ. I said, you must get rid of any anger you're holding on to. Oh, no, she said, I can't do that. And he said, you know, she said, I was the black sheep of the family. And she said, come out from Malta, married a guy, took it away from the parents. That didn't end up too well. And anyway, so here I am with a tumor in the liver. And I said, did you have any other cancer? He said, uterine cancer. I said, uh-huh. I said, well, okay, we'll talk about that another day. But I said, I want you to, you know, learn to forgive. So she found that very difficult. She said, I don't think I can do that. But I said, well, you've got a daughter already, a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old son. So anyway, I said, you want to be around for them for a bit more time? She said, yes. Oh, well, I said, now you've got to forgive. You've got a reason to forgive. I said, you don't have to go up personally to a person and say, I forgive you, but you've got to allow your emotions to forgive. You know, she came to me, she said, you're right, Ross, I'm going to do that. Anyway, you know, 1 month later, there was no sign of the cancer. It had disappeared completely. And her colour was yellow, it was jaundice. So, so it's not only just, as we talk about multiple modalities, it's not just one, it's a combination of the spirit of the body, the emotions of the body, and the physical being as well. So, and I guess, I don't know, obviously you've touched on Reiki before, and probably many people know Reiki, but you've got to understand Reiki as well, where if we allow ourselves to release an emotion, the toxins or the energy that's sort of blocked in there releases, so it just opens up and disappears. So working on, you know, if we look at the whole holistic, which is naturopathy, which is your herbs, naturopathy sort of has a wide range of modalities. It's herbalism, what else we got there? Mineralization, diet, of course, and diet's so important, but also, you know, my modality is the eyes, which gives me an inner look to the inner body and to be able to pick up toxins or chemicals that sit in that area.
And that's what and this is all what's also about. It's about chemicals, and like you were saying about holding emotions, you know, those emotions are producing chemicals. I mean, I recently, about 2 years ago, or a year ago, I healed from an allergy. I mean, the first time I went to see you was because I had a skin reaction. I had always had allergies. And then I remember that I went on a diet and I mean, with you, and I was like, wow, I felt like a new person.
Yes.
But then I had to always be aware of what I was eating. Recently, I started really working on my emotions, and I was releasing anger for a while. I forgot about my allergy. I had it. Releasing anger, and the outcome out of that was, well, inner peace, more inner peace, but also my allergy left.
Yes, that's right. Well, so all those emotions, I remember one more story, plenty of them. I had one client who lost her husband 2 or 3 years before, and he did all the things with the business and money and stuff like that. She was the housewife, cooking, cleaning, etc. Anyway, I gave her a spray which sort of helps to release emotions, and her daughter was at her place and doing the dishes. And then she said, all of a sudden, Mum just stopped, and she said her face went as red as you know, she said, I could see all this anger coming up, and she said, what am I going to do? Anyway, she'd cleaned some the glasses, was drying them. 2 of the glasses just shattered from the anger that she was releasing.
Wow. I mean, powerful, you know, I mean, we feel it, you know, we feel it when someone is angry. When you are angry, everybody feels it. There's such a powerful
yes, no doubt. And I think, you know, we all have emotions. If we didn't, we'd be a bit like a brick wall, we'd feel nothing. So So releasing the emotions, and you don't have to start yelling at people that's hurt you, but just remember they're as human as you are. They make mistakes like we do. We always say we've got the right to be right. We've also got the right to be wrong as well.
That's right. That's right. And I think we're living at the moment in such an amazing times, you know, that it is sort of supporting us to look within and heal.
Yeah.
You know, there's more people discussing this sort of thing, more people choosing to heal.
Yes, and I think, you know, just to let you know, your viewers know, and the way I look at things, and we seem to get pretty good results with that. The first area to work on is the bowel itself. We accumulate between 3 and 6 kilos of metabolic waste along the bowel wall, and some cleanses that people do, colonic irrigations, I guess, people can pass out over a metre long rubbish that comes out from the bowel, all hard, and that quite often is sticking on the bowel wall. And I find that we get, you know, it doesn't matter whether a person's got arthritis, diabetes, MS, cancers, sinuses, hay fever, whatever it might be, unless you work on the gut area, all the other modalities will only fall short of their potential. And even absorption of nutrients as well. There's quite often enough rubbish sitting on the bowel, not only to poison us, but also to absorb into the bloodstream and to end up somewhere, whether it's in the head area of the bowel or wherever it might be.
And it does make sense, doesn't it? Because if in a house we have the rubbish in the kitchen and we never took it out,
exactly,
like the whole house.
No, that's right. If you're renovating a house, you want to wipe down the walls first or clean up before you start putting the paint on. So, and that's a little bit like our inner body. It's like a house, I guess. You've got to look after the inside and look after which will look after the outside. And, you know, you're talking before about rashes and skin problems. Generally 90%, I've worked with a bioengineer and a forensic psychologist for about probably 18 years until he passed away, unfortunately, with pancreatic cancer. And I remember him sitting in my room, we were all chatting, and I said, "You've got a liver or pancreas problem." He said, "No, I don't." He said, "I've had a blood test." And I said, "No, you've got a liver or pancreas." So I think about a year later, he ended up with pancreatic cancer. But anyway, his words to me were, before he passed, he said, "Ross," he said, "all skin problems in the outside, or at least 90%, is to do with the gut and the digestive system, whether it's the food or whether it's the body not processing or digesting the foods properly. And quite often they turn into toxins if they can't be carried out through your body."
Mm. And just Ross, I mean, we've got a history in my particular family of gallbladder issues.
Yes.
So my father actually passed away of cancer, but both my siblings have had issues with the gallbladder. Is that when you talk about gut health? What does the gallbladder? What emotions? Perhaps what emotions does the gallbladder hold?
We say, "Have you got gall?"
Yes.
Yeah, the gallbladder also represents the kidneys. The liver as well, and that's the storage for bile to digest the fats and starches. So quite often, you know, as we said before, anger can end up in the liver, and that might have a problem with the gallbladder. So the gallbladder sort of when we eat something starchy or fatty, our gallbladder pumps out the bile and to digest that or to break it down. For a lot of people, when we'll call it diseased or compromised gallbladder, the fats don't digest and the starches don't digest. So it's almost like putting putty into your digestive system. And there is a cleanse that I do. I've probably done it 21 times, and I think Nancy might be aware of it. It's a liver gallbladder cleanse, and that's a 1-day cleanse for people using Epsom salts, olive oil, and a grapefruit. And I'm sure if Nancy hasn't got the recipe, we can always send it to you. But yeah, so quite often we get what we call a hereditary, and believe it or not, even when people have had their gallbladders removed, still get a lot of the same symptoms as though the gallbladder was there. They find it hard to digest. They get maybe stomach pain all made down in the lower colon. So on average, I think if the gallbladder cleanse, the gallstone holds fats, and we get fats When we've got fats, we get bacteria. When we get bacteria, we get viruses, and we get cysts. So they can form in the gallbladder, and in the bile ducts of the liver, there's probably several hundred, if not 1,000 or 2,000 stones collecting in the bile ducts of the liver, ready to be sort of, they tag together and they form a large one. So that can quite often block the bile duct, not only for the liver, but also the gallbladder as well. So there is a recipe that helps to flush that out if anybody's interested. It's reasonably safe to do. I've probably overseen about 4,000 or 5,000 and 21 times myself. The bowel becomes a bit loose, but you can actually see gallstones passing out through into the toilet bowl, and the ones they haven't properly calcified, which is a prerequisite for visibility on x-rays. So the medical system probably won't look at it as a gallbladder, but if you want to dissect the stones that come out, they match textbook exactly of the crystals in the gallstone itself. So anybody that's got liver problems or gallbladder problems, even if you haven't, it's probably one of the most powerful cleanses you can actually do. I did one 2 weeks ago, so it's a really good cleanse to do, and I think most people's health, particularly allergies, will be cleared up with it. There is a protocol that you can use herbs to detoxify prior to the cleanse, but it's one that's worth maybe considering. Seems to be quite popular. Yeah. So if you haven't done a cleanse, I think we spoke before with Christian and having issues down the side here, he would be well open to doing it. So I'm pretty sure you've probably done it, I think, have you ever done the gallbladder cleanse?
If I have, I've done quite a few cleanses with you, and I was going to say that every time I do a cleanse, I just feel like a new person. I mean, I'm just being drawn to do something now with you,
Yeah. So anyway, so there's Christian. Time to do the gallbladder cleanse.
I think that'll be on the cards. I'll go back to the time on here and I'll get the recipe. Well, we're only just talking a couple of weeks ago to a nutritionalist, and she was certainly talking about gut health and being the second brain. And it holds. Certainly from my experience, I hold a lot of anxiety. Like I can feel it in the pit of my stomach, and let alone what it is. I mean, certainly there's been a real shift over the last couple of decades in terms of processed food. So I can only imagine how that's really. I'm just amazed when you said 90% of people's issues are digestive issues. It just blows my mind.
Yeah. Well, if you go back, if you look at it, they said 50 years ago, 90% of the food will come directly from the farm to you. Now it's only 10%. So it means it's in storage or it's being processed. And, you're talking just about, where you take your stresses. We have chakras. There's 7 chakras, but within those chakras, there's about another probably 13 and even more. We've got the esoteric energy, which sort of has layers outside, and we can mainly go to the 12th. But with the gallbladder, that vibrates at 400, around about probably 570 nanometers. So what we do is we quite often test people up, even through muscle testing, and I normally check up on the chakras. So out of 20 chakras, the body always shows 5, and that can be from, we talked about the sinuses, there's a blockage there. We talk about the liver, there may be a blockage there. So these are on a physical level, but they're also on an emotional level as well. So as I said from the start, you've got to combine the two. We know we all have emotions. If we didn't, as I said, we'd be a bit like a brick wall. So we have a tendency to hold on in the gut. So people that have digestive problems, I had a lady in this week who she said, I saw you 8 years ago with my daughter. And she said she had ulcerative colitis. She said she'd been everywhere and all they wanted to do was cortisone. And so she said, we came to you, you put my daughter on some supplements for the digestion, but also made up a harmony spray as well. And she said, within 3 days, the issue was gone. I said, no more pain, no more issues. So as quickly as that, it wasn't just working on the gut, but people that have digestive problems, the vagus nerve from the brain is connected to the digestive system. So you might be a person that carries their stress along and it all ends up in the lower digestive system. Obviously, some people in the heart or the lungs where they might get respiratory problems or heart problems. So yeah, so it depends on the emotions and what we hold on to as well.
And just a question, Ross, is there a cultural disposition to certain...
Yeah, look, cultures, I notice people that come from sort of South America, Nancy, and Asian countries, and, whether it's Indian as well, there's a tendency from the Irish point of view to see a lot of yellow, but also brown. Now, colours in the eyes designate different areas. So if we've got brown, that's obvious in the sclera, which is the white of the eye. We need a torch to have a look to see in the inner eye and the whites. So brown is generally liver, yellow is kidneys, orange is pancreas. What else we got there? Thyroid is a cross between brown and yellow or orange. So yeah, so obviously it depends on which country we come from. Now, a lot of people in Latin America, but also Asia, like a lot of spicy foods. Now that's okay, very nutritional, very good, but the liver doesn't like heat. So over a period of time, the liver says, yuck, this is too hot for me. So then if a person gets really a very hot, tongue, or sort of feels like it's a bit large, it's generally an indication that the liver and mainly the liver is a bit congested. So hot foods are okay to a point, but they do sort of show up in the eyes of people that are sort of South American, Latin Americans, Asians, and sort of so on. So yeah, so obviously watching hot foods, while they might be good for you, they're just sometimes too much heat.
That's
the
right.
Chinese look at heat and cold as well.
Ross, and you also, let me see whether we are open for questions if anyone wants to ask a question.
We've got one here, actually.
Veronica's asking.
Veronica said, what is your opinion, Ross, that these pills said to heal the gut, for example, pills promoted by nutrition experts and doctors?
So it depends on what pills. If you're looking at the doctors, they will give you sort of Nexium and a few of the anti-inflammatories. It might sort of cover the problem, but it doesn't fix it. So we find herbs, particularly slippery elm, obviously we don't interfere with what the doctors are suggesting, but if people are looking for alternates and the problem hasn't resolved itself, then we'll make suggestions, which we know herbs like slippery elm is very fantastic for buffering the digestive system. It puts a coating along the bowel wall and the intestinal wall as well, and that soothes any healing. You can actually buy a gut health product, and there's probably a few different formulas on the shelves of health food shops and sometimes supermarkets as well. And they generally have herbs like aloe vera, slippery elm, marshmallow, turmeric is another one, even though it's very good for any inflammation along the bowel. And also if there's damage, particularly with, sort of gluten. Gluten's a big issue these days, and I'll get on to that in a minute. But so you can get onto products that are naturally, and there's plenty of them, there's a choice of probably about 15 or 20, but I feel they heal the body, whereas most drugs, unless the body heals itself, is only just a Band-Aid.
So I was talking offline, Ross, about black seed oil.
Yes,
I've started taking. You're saying it's Eastern
Europe. Yeah.
It's an Middle Eastern.
It is from Middle Eastern, so like most people who come from Middle Eastern countries will probably be aware of it. But it seems to be a heal-all for everybody, from arthritis, diabetes, even cancers. I think they use. While we don't suggest, you really, for serious conditions, we always suggest to have a read up or talk to people that know a little bit about these products. And, while herbs are generally classified as being reasonably safe, but you've also got to be careful on the dosage you're taking as well. So, but yes, it's a good all-rounder. And a friend of mine, Egyptian friend, he was always mentioning the black seed oil. And I think it comes from the caraway seeds or the cumin seeds. Yeah, cumin. So they're sort of available from Asia and the rest of it. So yeah, a really good all-rounder for people. Yeah.
And like you were saying, it's good to always, with everything that we're talking about, definitely, we're not saying not to go to the doctors, like you said. It's always, but if something doesn't work, okay, for you, well, then look for other options, because there are.
Oh, there's lots of options, yes.
There are options, and that's what we need. That's right, we need to know that. There are options, and it's a matter of trying it.
Well, we know that foods are nutritional, but we know herbs are medicinal, and they've been around for tens of thousands of years. So why alter something? Look, what the medical system does, they find the active ingredient in the herb or the plant, and they synthesize it. But the unfortunate thing when they do that, they alter the structure, so it might go in and help the underlying problem, but it also accumulates in the system. So we know all drugs, to the best of them, have side effects, and it's an accumulation over a period of time. So, a person that's been taking aspirin for 10 or 20 years, they've probably lost liters of blood from the irritation from the aspirin. So products that would probably counter that would be striprium, aloe vera. We know that even though most herbs are very safe, but they may not agree with everybody. So we just got to, and a lot of people say, well, I had a side effect when I took this herb. We might mistake side effects from a healing crisis or healing process. So herbs generally bring about a change, and obviously you stop the supplement if you're feeling unwell, but then you, if you're feeling okay, then you take a less dose a couple of days later, or build up on it. So not only are we there to improve the nutrition in the body, but also detoxify the body as well. So a toxic cell is a toxic body, or a weak cell is a weak body. So nutrition starts from the day you change the diets, and again, when it comes down to nutrition, making sure you're absorbing. Probiotics are very popular, Swedish bitters, there's a few digestive stimulants, and so you start to build. It's like building a house. You start from the ground up and then sort of build up through the layers. And so a liver will take probably 2 years if it's had been a chronic problem. And also the kidneys, it could take up to 2 years to properly repair. Probably takes about 4 or 5 months to improve the function of that. So we know that our skin replenishes itself every 28 days, but the organs probably take 5 months for the cells to replenish.
Oh, wow, that's amazing to know. And like you were saying, once you're cleaning up, you're getting rid of the toxins. I remember doing a diet a few years back, and the first 3 weeks I was actually sick because I was sneezing, and it was just getting rid of all the toxins. I didn't realize that I had so many toxins.
And it's not all about supplements, but they sort of play an important part. You're talking about the diet. We sort of favour a yeast-free, sugar-free diet, and dairy and wheat-free diet as well. Something that's become sort of more common is thyroid problems with women. Now, we know that gluten challenges the thyroid. So a lot of people that suffer from Graves or Hashimoto's, there's damage to the thyroid, and there's a large percentage of those people it's caused by the gluten in the actual wheat. And that's like an irritant, and it blocks the uptake of iodine, which then sort of the rest of the body may get the iodine, but not the thyroid. So all of a sudden, the iodine levels go way up. But one of my clients was telling me she sees a doctor in Italy, and he's very much into cutting out wheat altogether. And she said his research shows that what used to be 7% of the wheat was gluten, he said it's now 27%. So, and that's because of modified wheat. And so wheat is becoming a big problem for the gut, but also for the mind as well. We know with autism and ADHD, they say, the first 2 things to cut out on is the wheat and the dairy, because we have gluten and we have casein in the actual wheat, not wheat, the milk.
Yeah.
That's right. It's amazing that we still sometimes don't really click that nutrition is so important. It's what we put in our bodies.
Yes, and you find a lot of people. They say that 90% of serotonin is actually produced in the digestive system, not in the brain. There's about 5% up there, but it's actually produced in the bowel, in the digestive system. So if that's compromised, the mind's compromised as well. If you've got an upset stomach, it can cause headaches. So people that suffer from headaches, normally most of the time, apart from tension or muscle strain, it's caused by fermentation or gut problems. And I had one lady who came to see me, this was years ago, many stories again, and she had cirrhosis of the liver. And when she went to the doctor for the report, she said, "You've got to stop drinking." She said, "I don't drink." And she said, "Yes, you do." She said, "No, I don't." And you wouldn't believe her. I said, "Well, what's actually happening?" I said, "You've got a little brewery going on in your stomach and your digestion." And I said, you're eating probably sugars or fruits. And I said, "You've got an imbalance, probably too much yeast in there, and that's actually fermentating. And the yeast actually breaks down not only breads, but also sugar into alcohol. So her body's recycling alcohol without even drinking it." Yeah.
So, just needed the hops.
So cut down on your yeast, yeah.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, clarity, because I remember the first time I did that diet with you years and years ago, the first thing that I noticed was that I was clear in my mind, because I used to be foggy all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of people are very cloudy, can't quite function properly, a little bit floating, and 90% of it's from fermentation of the foods and yeast. And we came in with the knowledge of yeast going back probably 35 years ago almost. And one of the nutritionist came up to me. She was doing some work in the shop. She said, I've found the answer of all women's problems. And she had the book, The Yeast Connection by Dr. Crook of all names. And so that was the first time we'd really been introduced to the negative effects of yeast. And that, yeast ferments, it produces cytotoxins, mycotoxins, and that affects the adrenal glands, the liver, the adrenal glands, the pancreas and the liver, get around the right way. And so from there, our sort of, not our life goes downhill, but our health goes downhill.
And Ross, a lot of people talk about having an alkaline or an acidic diet. I know with the keto diet, it was trying to bring that alkaline level up. What's your opinion or take on?
Well, we know that three quarters of the in the blood is an alkaline, and 1/4 is an acid. So what you and I think is acid is not. You and I think of maybe tomatoes, oranges. They're actually alkaline. But it's how those foods break down into what they call an ash. Depends on the composition of the minerals in there. So so really non-grain diets, cutting out meats and stuff like that. Sugars are actually neutral, but we still sort of say be careful of that. So mainly your meats are all your meats, including fish. To a lesser extent, maybe oysters and stuff like that, are high on the acidic side. Now, sometimes some people might have more of a lean towards being slightly acidic, and they might, like myself, have bluish eyes, and then a lot of white in there as well. So you can actually, from the iris, you can pick up people that are quite acidic. And so we know that stresses, drugs, medication, alcohol, they can all produce acidity. And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to sort of find something on YouTube or the sort of diets on low acid diets. So some people can go slightly the other way, where they're a bit too more alkaline, but our body, our pancreas pumps out enzymes to digest the starches and the fats, but also carbohydrates, but also produces bicarbonate of soda, which helps to alkalize the intestinal tract. So the stomach is acidic, which is important. So we don't want that to become alkaline. So you've got to watch too much if people do take bicarbonate of soda, they can end up with ulcers if they take it for too long. These things are quite okay to be taken for a short time. But again, it sort of comes back to the whole digestive system. So, and when the body's less alkaline, we tend to be more acidic, so we don't reabsorb our fluids. So we become more fluid dependent, well, less fluid, which we become more sort of acid. So a lot of people with acid conditions, it might be their sore joints, or almost like arthritic conditions.
Oh,
and skin problems as well.
And reflux, is reflux something that's associated with the acidity in the stomach?
Yeah, the stomach produces hydrochloric acid. Now, if you put a big meal in there, it's got to churn away, so it produces hydrochloric acid to actually break down that food. The longer it stays in the digestive system, the less we have in the lining of the digestive system. It seems to strip away some of the lining, and so basically reflux is normally acidity coming up from the duodenum up into the stomach, or from the stomach up into the windpipe, or not the esophagus at least. So sometimes the pylora from the stomach to the small intestine is not shutting off, which allows gases to come back up into the stomach. So the idea is to sort of have one or two foods, vegetables, green vegetables. You can have a whole plate of them. If you look at food combining, you don't have starches and proteins at the same meal. That relieves a lot of tenderness or relief on people that do have the food sitting there all night and right through into the morning. So a lot of people, so if you say in the evening, you have rice and chicken and maybe a bit of salad, that's not a good combination. Your digestive system's probably going to try and churn that down right up until probably 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's best to, where you can, do what we call food combining and not cut out starches and proteins at the same meal. And that relieves a lot of problems in the stomach. Apart from that, obviously, people that have got that reflux problems, things like aloe vera, slippery elm, and some people enzymes can be beneficial as well.
So maybe even people that have insomnia, probably it's because their body's trying to digest the dinner, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, if the food, some people say I can't sleep, and they'll say, what time do you wake up in the morning? Oh, yeah, 3 o'clock. So, well, that's the liver trying to, the organs repair themselves while we sleep, or they should be at least anyway. So if we wake up intermittently, we say from 12 o'clock till 3 o'clock, it's the liver. From 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, it's the lungs. And then you go from the kidneys, I think, is round about from 5 o'clock in the morning, and then from 5 o'clock onwards, the large intestine. So if we've eaten a big meal, if you're looking at Parmigiana with chips and all the rest that goes on, you'll be trying to digest that for the rest of the night or early tomorrow morning. So yeah, so people that do wake up at Pacific times, if you look at your diet, look at food combining, and we know that not all the foods agree with us. We have a blood group type which is specific to particular foods. So even while you might be able to eat them and they may not cause too much of a problem, but ultimately when our body gets run down, those foods come up as the ones that are causing most of the problems. So there's probably 12 foods that we have the most intolerances to: dairy, wheat, potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, peppers, eggs, and then nuts, and then legumes. They're the main ones that will probably cause it. There were some other ones like citrus as well. So, but there's probably, it's normally what I say, 90% of our problems when we do get trouble, whether it's bloating, whether it's skin problems, headaches, arthritic conditions, normally it comes from the foods that we're eating the most of.
Is a capsicum a pepper?
You've got the bell peppers, which are in the nightshade family, so they're a little bit different. They're still probably a cousin of the hot chili peppers. So, strange enough, hot chili pepper is actually very good for the heart. In fact, in Japan, they got a bit of heart tissue. I don't know whether it's human or animal. I'm not quite sure. I think it was human, and they changed the water every day with distilled water, and they put cayenne pepper in there. They kept that piece of tissue of the heart alive for 15 years. In fact, they had to keep cutting it because it was actually growing.
Wow.
So
I tend to eat cayenne pepper because when I used to have my allergy, that was one of the things that they recommended.
yes. So look, always look at what you're eating first. I had a bit of a rash on my foot, my leg, and I couldn't get rid of it. And then I did my own hair test and found out that tomatoes were coming up, and that was affecting the kidneys, which was affecting the skin. So of course, when I picked up, I said, well, I have for lunch a sandwich with tomatoes in it, and more often in the evening we have a salad with tomatoes, or there might be another mix we have with tomatoes in it as well. So I've cut that out for the last 3 months. Maybe go back onto it some stage, particularly the homegrown ones here.
Wow.
So they say, the foods are what we eat, literally.
And it's an interesting journey, food, isn't it? Because I've been on times that I'm eating really healthy. And I used to be, the allergy will help me to do that, because I had an allergy, so I have to watch what I ate.
Yes.
Now that I don't have the allergy anymore, I'm eating anything.
We go back to our original diet, yeah. As I say, look, for most people, we are human, so we do like the nice things in life. So we are tend to go to cheat a little bit. But yeah, but that's life, If you look, and a lot of people do say, Ross, I follow a very healthy diet, and I can't understand. I had a couple said, well, we're doing all the right things. Like my sister-in-law and mother-in-law, they go down to the pub, they eat what they want, they drink, they smoke, yet they've got no problems. I said, well, are they on medication? Oh, yes, diabetes, they've both had some form of cancer. So they listed about 3 or 4 things. I said, they're not showing because they're just, their body's not even recognizing, what they're putting into their body. So it's like this jumble that's happening. So the body says, well, actually, what's going on here? So all of a sudden the body, those toxins numb the brain, and the drink numbs the brain, and the cigarettes probably do the same as well.
And I remember once that I asked you, I actually asked you why, because I felt that I had a very sensitive system, whatever I ate. And you actually said it's actually good because it actually maintains you monitoring your system.
Yes. Yeah, your body's actually telling you. And I think, if you go off of food for a while and then reintroduce it maybe too soon, your body will react quite fiercely with that. So this body's saying, well, I'm going to smack you on the hand each time you eat the wrong food. So, but it's only when we become more complacent and eat the wrong food, and then we start to feel pretty ordinary. So we don't know what we're eating is actually affecting us, unless you remember what happened the last time when you mopped up your diet. So yeah, it's a matter of listening to your body, really, and what you put in. And as I said, one man's food is another man's poison. So you've just got to sort of listen to what your body is doing. You can have blood tests. We do our own hair analysis, which we find, gives people an update on, what their diet's doing and what minerals they're deficient on, what foods they're intolerant to. So we're all got an intolerance to something. Doesn't matter who you are. It's just that depends on how well your digestive system's working, whether it neutralizes those toxins that might be in that food that might cause the problems.
I know that we're off time, almost running out of time.
Yeah, Ross, someone just asked a question about gluten.
Yeah.
Obviously, some people are gluten intolerant, but if you're not necessarily gluten intolerant, obviously you talked about the percentages of gluten in wheat, for example, that's changed.
Yeah.
What's your opinion about completely getting off gluten?
Look, the idea is to trial it out, not having a non-gluten diet for maybe 6 to 8 weeks, see how you feel. And certainly you'll know the difference because bloating in general will go down. Look, I normally suggest most of my clients to cut out gluten or at least wheat for a period of 6 to 8 weeks, and also dairy for 6 to 8 weeks. So just to see how they feel, and if they decided to introduce them, just see how their digestive system functioned with that. But yeah, gluten's a big problem. I can tell you what, not so now, it'd be worse probably in the future. Our children are going to have more problems. We know that we can't always blame gluten on itself, but autism was only probably in America at least, 1 in 10,000 in 1983. And in 2008, it was 1 in 150. Now it is 1 in 70, and they say by 2025 be one in every second child will have some form of autism or ADHD, whatever it might be. So we can't just blame the actual gluten itself or the dairy, but the sprays that they use on it does compromise the gut area, which makes it more difficult for us to process. And particularly the gluten is becoming a lot harder to digest, particularly younger children. Adults maybe not so much, but look, for most of your viewers, people who are connected, if you have got bloatedness, obviously the first things, cut out gluten for a few weeks, cut out dairy. You'll soon know. They're the two on the hot list of foods to be careful of. And unfortunately, they're probably the highest amount of foods that in our, like, you look at a biscuit or even chips, which is potatoes, and it probably has wheat starch on it. So, to crispen it up. So they add wheat and, sugar, wheat and dairy to most products, particularly wheat. And ice cream, you think, well, where does wheat come? Why would they put wheat in ice cream? Because it's like a glue. It holds it all together, and it probably makes it more smooth.
God.
So, yeah, gluten's a bit of a nasty one, to be honest, and it's going to be problems in the future also.
Yeah.
Nancy doesn't want me to eat salt and vinegar chips anymore, so
no, that's
probably
right.
not a good one.
Got to be, look, unfortunately, we do have a few chips, but we know when to stop at home, or just you might have a bit of a run on it, and we know that the oils and the chips and stuff like that are just no good. Yeah, they use that canola, and if you look at the canola, it's sort of probably one of the worst oils you can use, particularly once it's heated. Yeah.
Yes.
So cotton
yeah.
oil.
Yeah.
That's another area. Processed foods, particularly oils, they clog up a system. You're talking about your family with gallbladder problems. Then if you look at the oils, the processed oils, our bodies, normally oils are quite healthy for the heart, but they've got to come freshly from the plant itself. I think, if you froze the oil as soon as it was extracted from the seed, then you've got the whole oil. Once it's sort of in a jar, even weeks and months after, you lose the benefit from it as well. So it becomes, there's the fats that heal and the fats that kill. So even, believe it or not, probably animal fats are probably better than most oils. As long as they...
Before they used to cook with that, I remember my mom in Uruguay, she used to cook with animal fat, really.
Yeah.
It's not that terribly long ago. It's not, hundreds of years ago. It's not.
Yeah. And I think, unfortunately, the cattle are fed wheat these days, even though they eat grass. The grain, at least grass-fed cows do better than they might put on weight with the grains, but they've modified the grains. I was just looking on Landline yesterday, and the amount of money they make for mainly I think 70% of all the wheat goes into animal feed, whether it's pigs, whether it's cows, whether it's chooks or what have you. So they're passing on their residue of toxins onto us, unfortunately, apart from free range, the ones that nibble the grass and the bugs. The best eggs come from your own or organic, where they're eating sort of greens and stuff like that. But in the big commercial places, they can't get enough greens unless they're in somebody's garden. Yeah.
And Ross, you were talking earlier before we went online that this is not obviously just something that you've started last year. This has been a passion of yours for so many decades.
Yes.
That you're almost 3 months booked out in advance or something crazy like that.
That's right. Yes, yes.
And so during this year, obviously, because you've been deemed to be an essential service down in Melbourne, because you're based in Melbourne, but certainly online, you've been able to do a hell of a lot more globally.
Exactly. Well, this is the first time we've used Zoom at home, so it's probably going to open something up from. We probably won't have an hour in the day I have of my own. So, but anyway, look, it's beneficial. I do get quite a few clients from overseas, making phone calls, South America, Europe, Asia, almost every country. We've probably dealt with people. So that might sort of open something up more from what we're doing, and it's always good to be able to see a face rather than just a voice.
Yes, no, definitely. This is fantastic, and I'm sure that people might be.
Yeah.
Yes, it is possible to do it this way. They don't even have to be in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But I mean, I mean,
We
yes.
do get quite a few people interstate when they can, travelling from more different parts of the country. So although I've got a lot of people right around Australia who we do deal with, and we either do hair analysis where they can't, or they've shifted interstate for whatever reason, we still catch up on phone or, whatever it might be. So, I do phone consultations, but we don't charge for that. So it's just, to help people to help themselves.
Yeah.
So, sorry, you talked about hair analysis. So, for people that aren't familiar with that, please elaborate if you could.
On that. Yeah, going back probably maybe 18 years ago, I had a couple of people sort of asking me about hair analysis that I was doing at the time for horses. And I said, oh, yes, I've been working with a few horses over the years. We operated a factory for herbs, producing our own liquid extracts, but also buying herbs in bulk. And so they said, look, I know that you've had some success with horses. I said, yeah. One horse, his name was Trebler, and the trainer came to see, look, Ross, this horse is, it's got the potential, but said, it's just not winning its race. It's getting out of the gates and sort of, halfway down, it's just got no energy. So I said, look, give me a hair sample, I can test it up. And we picked up a virus in the liver. So I gave him some products. And anyway, the short of it was, within 1 week, the horse had got second. The next week it got first, got another first and another first. So from then onwards, we're getting a lot of hair samples from all over the place with these horses. So anyway, what we decided, we said, well, we need to be a bit more professional at this. So we developed a system over 3 years. We worked on 2,000 horses, and we got the last lot of horses we checked from the stables, and this was probably about 4 or 5 years ago in Flemington. We tested up on 10 horses, and they gave us an accuracy rate of what they could find of 99%. We got to the level where the Australian Racing Authority was wanting us to do hair analysis for any drugs that were being used. But we said, we're that accurate, you'll probably lose half the horses with your races. I said, they'll all be struck out because I said the drugs that they're using are rampant through the industry. So it doesn't matter which part of the, which stables they're in it for the dollar, not for the horse. So anyway, we tested up on all the viruses and parasites, and then we went to humans, and then went to dogs and cats as well. So it's a hair analysis. It's for humans, it's $150 for analysis, but we do retest for nothing up to 18 months. So what we do is it's our own system. I did Vega and Mora testing. We call it a positive negative resistance. So if we go through a list of viruses, there's a frequency every virus has. So if we pick up on that frequency, then it might be the cytomegalovirus. We know that the organs and the tissue and the muscles also have a frequency. So we can actually match that frequency with the organs. So we can pick up, we all have similarities. As I said before, the heart vibrates at 520 nanometers, the lungs at 550. So if it was for the lungs, if there's 555 or 556, that's overactive. It's under 550, it's underactive. So we could sort of pick up viruses, bacteria, toxins, heavy metals, chemicals produced in the bowel, yeast or fungus, the whole lot. So that's something we don't advertise it because we don't want to be flooded with too many hair. It takes a lot to do a hair analysis. So it's not my main thing, but we do it because, people that might be interstate where you can't come eye to eye with them, or they can't come here. So, but yeah, that's an alternative for some people. Yeah.
Will you be able to diagnose, get illnesses as well? Like if someone sends you hair or just virus?
Oh, yeah. No, so we don't look, a lot of hair analysis, they do take a big chunk of the hair to burn it. We don't need that. We just need a few little particles or hairs. So just, about 4 or 5 hairs or even 2 or 3 hairs, as long as you can see them in an envelope, that's all we need. With the hair colouring, it doesn't make any difference to us. If you're getting minerals where they sort of burn the hair, and they tell you what the heavy metals are, we'll pick up heavy metals if they're affecting the body. If they're in the liver or the kidneys, because they're the main organs that actually help to process those toxins or store them until the body can eliminate them. So there's not that many people that have huge amounts of, although talking about heavy metals, they're talking about the pink salts. And some of the South American ones are high in lead and a couple of other mercury. I don't know about the Himalayan ones, but a lot of these are going to have all sorts of minerals, but how much? So, we get heavy metals from our backyard. We know that lead is still in the, they say, I think it was 1,200 times the normal level around Melbourne, the amount of lead in our soil. And arsenic is probably sort of not too bad. Mercury from fillings, that sort of stuff, that can affect the head and the brain. But yeah, so probably on average, probably most people show some form of toxins, but not at a huge amount, unless you're really unwell. So I had one client, he was full of copper, and he said, no way can I have copper poisoning, Ross. He said, I'm a builder and I haven't used it for years. I said, have you lost any weight recently? He said, oh yeah, 48 kilos in 8 weeks. He said, and I couldn't tell the difference. And anyway, I said, yeah, what's happened? All this copper has been stored in your fat cells, and all of a sudden your fat cells have broken down, you're losing weight, all that copper has to go back through the liver and the kidneys.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, so sometimes that's why you may not always pick up the heavy metals, because it's not really, well, you can pick them up, but if it's really causing problems, then it's in the liver and the kidneys, and sometimes in the blood as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, toxins, chemicals, where unfortunately I think there's about 100,000 different chemicals that we can affect us.
Just, someone said that they had also breed horses, and have a few running now, so you might get some hair from them.
Oh, okay. You can pass on the information if you wish.
Well, Ross, it's such a pleasure to chat with you, and we could spend the whole night just hearing you, because
probably about a week, I think, day and night, or probably a month or two. The problem is I've got too many stories, and which ones to tell the first, as always. There's always a good story with everything, but yeah. And, successes are, people talk about their successes, like, what you've done, and everybody, it's not just myself, but other people. And they're the stories we want to listen to, and what, how people have self-healed or been taught how to self-heal. Yeah. So we're here to share our information and our knowledge as well, and that's important.
Definitely. And you have many success stories, I know. And I remember the time that I was living in Melbourne, and so many people were going to see you. So many people that we knew. In that times, like we were saying before, you had most of the Latin American community visiting you as well.
I remember I had one client, they come into the shop, they shifted into the local area, and anyway, they're familiarizing themselves with the area, with the shopping centre, and they walked past the shop, and the husband said to his wife, he said, do you want to go into the health food shop? She said, no, and walked back. She said, I got down probably 10 shops and something turned me back. She said, I walked into the shop, and at that time I had a naturopath working for me at the counter, and she pointed to the door in my room. She said, I want to see whoever's in that room.
Wow.
And anyway, she had lung cancer and had a secondary cancer in the other lung. And anyway, the specialist said, look, again, we can give you chemotherapy. It will make your life a little bit easier. You'll probably live a bit longer, but it won't cure you. Anyway, we got rid of the cancer within 10 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And I know many people, actually, personally, that had gone to see you, and especially with cancer, because you work with so many people with cancer. Yeah.
Well, look, you probably find people that sort of need, they'll find you in some way, or they'll find whoever they need to help them. And if you put the signals out there, you get attracted to that energy. It doesn't matter whether it's here or whether you're in Sydney or whatever, even overseas. You can connect to people energetically, but also by phone and by video.
By Zoom now.
Zoom, I know.
and like you said, Ross, it's important that, there's a whole gamut of ways that people can reach out
exactly.
in their own medicinal way or into traditional, but obviously Eastern medicine has been around for many. Only the first session we had for Conversations from Home, we had a gentleman on that talked about Indigenous culture and how they were so connected with the land that they could go up to a tree and basically take the little piece or branch off and say, there you go, you got a bad stomach, you got, there you have that. They just know so much about the land, and then obviously the same with Eastern
with
Eastern
medicine
healing
as well. Yeah, we've got a property in the countryside, 2.5 acres, and my plumber he's got had cancer, and we didn't get rid of. He's on medication, but he was on medication that was damaging his heart. So we gave him something for that, and his heart came back to normal. Anyway, his son suffers from a brain tumor, had 2 operations, and unfortunately they can't clear it out. So he came up to see me last Wednesday, and up to the farm, and anyway. I took him around the farm, and it's only 2.5 acres, so not really a farm. And I said, this herb here, chickweed, I said, it's good for the digestion of fats. I said, cleavers or bedstraw, it's good for the blood. I said, sheep sorrel, it's good for the blood, good anti-cancer. So the dandelion, which sits, grows, and we get trying to get out because it's a weed, very good for the liver. So you can almost walk around most people's backyard and pick herbs or plants, what you think of weeds, and they will be for some form of healing. And my colleague, he said, the French bioengineer, said to me, he said, Ross, basically all we need is within our environment. So I don't know whether it's 1 kilometre or 10 kilometres, but he said, in the countryside, much easier. In the city, unfortunately, we spray all the weeds, from blackberry to all the rest of them. And blackberry leaves are very good for the sugars or sugar diabetes. And the fruit, of course, very good for antioxidants. So, you could walk around most people's garden and find something that would actually probably help with their disorders.
That's right. We live in an amazing world, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you think about celery,
to reconnect.
Yeah. Well, even like celery is very good for the kidneys, good for sort of gout and stuff like that. So yeah, everything's around us. We want to look at it. So get out your herbal books and go trace them and go and find them. It's always hard to sort of identify certain herbs. And is it a weed or is it a poison? So get the ones that you look like the one that's on a photograph. Yeah, and stinging nettle as well. Even though it's that one for sure, because when you touch it, it gives you like a prickle feeling. And that's very good as a blood cleanser, very rich in iron. So even problems with skin conditions or arthritic conditions or blood conditions, whatever it might be, will benefit from cleavers, nettle, whatever else is around. Or even your good old thistles, the Sumeri thistle for the liver. So we've got plenty of weeds to eat.
Well, that's fantastic. I wish we could start using them more,
Yeah, I think that most people just start to become aware, and it doesn't do any harm to buy yourself a herbal book and just have a look through and just become accustomed to it. And then, of course, you can Google just about anything these days and find that natural products are beneficial. And look, for the best of it, most herbs are quite safe to take. Some people might have to be careful with their prescriptions, but in general, they're reasonably safe. Otherwise, most herbs are listed, which means you can buy them off the health shop without any need anything for it. It's like a doctor's
prescription or
whatever. Yeah. So we've got probably about 140 different teas in our shop. So that allows people to make up their own mixtures. And we've got about 150 liquid extracts as well. So we can make up our own formulas.
Nice. Your shop is amazing. And I remember just going, you in your little room and you see us and then we go outside and you got all those stuff.
All the herbs and stuff like that, yeah. Well, yeah, we do a lot with animals as well, particularly we said the horses, but dogs and cats. With some of our products that we formulated years ago, go to all parts of the world: Japan, Korea, Singapore, China, Thailand, America, Canada, New Zealand, and probably a lot of other European countries. I make them up, but I've got somebody that actually I make up bulk, so he sends it on packages, it sends it right around the world. I didn't have time to, by the time I see people, I haven't got time at night to do anything else. So, yeah. So sometimes
I don't know how you do it, Ross, because you give so much time to people. Whenever we've gone to see you, you give them time, and then you got people waiting outside. You're amazing. But
knock
I
on the
know
door.
how much people love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
And I think it's really important for the listeners. Like Ross, obviously, you're so busy seeing clients and whatnot that it's we feel very honoured and blessed that you can actually share your time and your wisdom with us, because
you're welcome.
It's not something you do quite often, right?
No.
And so we just feel blessed, and I know Nancy certainly will agree that you've made the time for us today.
Yeah.
And like I said, we've gone down different rabbit holes, discussing different things, but I think that's at the end of the day is, yes, there's a holistic view of many things, but like we've said in these conversations, people can be looking at meditation, yoga, iridology, naturopathy. There's so many ways that we can look at healing the body, and this is what we're trying to create, this platform of conversation.
Well, what I say, quite often to some people, I've given talks to groups as well, and I said, look, you can agree with everything I'm saying, but you may be into yoga, maybe meditation. I said, it doesn't matter what you do, but it's what you feel, you get drawn to at the time. So there's different modalities, and so the good thing about natural therapies, it's about the options, the different options. And that's really what it's about, and whatever suits you at the time, and that might lead you into something else.
That's right.
Okay.
Ross, have you written any books on herbs or anything like that? No.
When I've got time, and 4 or 5 years' time, look, unfortunately, no. Again, it comes to
someone asked. That's right.
Yeah, that's right. That's okay. And I've been asked quite a few times. Maybe I will at some stage. My wife's saying no.
No, Adele is going, no more work. Listen up.
Look, probably I'll put something together, but look, it's easy for me to talk about something rather than write it down. When you start writing it down, you keep changing it. So I'll just have to get somebody that can, write it down as I say it. Yeah, but I'll probably do something.
Hopefully someone will offer, and because I mean, even for us to have you recorded, now I can see you whenever I miss you, I can see you.
Okay, different, fantastic.
We've got you here now.
And the book title will be The World According to Ross.
Exactly, that's right. Well, that'll be interesting. Look, there's still a lot of knowledge, a lot of things, understanding, and even though I've been 35 years, I'm still learning. So you can never be an expert until the end of days, or, as they say, knowledge is everything, and wisdom is, what you've learned.
Of course. And look, and the love that you have for people, because every time everybody has gone to see you, your love heals.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And what comes from the heart. And I think that's with most healers, they're here to sort of help others. That maybe, it's easier to heal somebody else than necessary yourself. So you can see, but once another person heals, you can see that, I've got a similar problem. So the healer starts to learn from the person that they're treating, that they've also got to apply the same rules. No use sort of saying, don't eat yeast, don't eat sugar, and have the diet if you're not doing it yourself.
That's right. We have to walk our talk as much as we can.
Walking talk. Yeah. Fantastic.
It's I'll share this quote with you, Ross, because it reminds me a lot of today's discussion. This is a quote from Pablo Picasso, which says, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away."
Yeah, exactly.
And that for me summarizes who you are.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ross. Honestly.
Well, thanks for having the opportunity, both Nancy and Christian. Thank you. Yes.
When the borders open, you know where we're going.
Oh, we know where we're going. Yes. So I don't think that's going to be too far off, but of course, everybody, I don't know what the value of the price. Well, if you drive down, it's not so bad, but if you fly down, it's probably going to be cheaper to fly overseas. Well, when you get there, at least anyway.
That's right. And hopefully it will open, and we invite people. I mean, I know you're really busy, and like Christian said, you're booked out for months now. But
we do get cancellations. Do tell people we do get cancellations. So there's always an opening. Not everybody can come to their appointments, particularly if it's made 3 months in advance.
Yes. Oh. So if people are drawn to Ross, we definitely recommend it. I mean, it's been a person that I feel that has walked next to me for over 30 years now. So thank you. Thank you.
And thank you. And
thank you, Adele, for setting up the Zoom and doing all, and for Ross's son for getting all the video and audio done. Thank you, Adele.
You're welcome.
Okay.
You're the first Adele, not the other one.
No, that's right. She does try. She does sing a song, so.
Oh, I do. Yes, I'm very good. Not as good as the Adele.
Thank you, both of you. And if anyone goes to see Ross, we'll also see Adele, because she's always in the show.
Most of the time.
Yes.
Much love to you guys. Much love to you, and all the best. And thank you for your time.
And it's all good to see your beautiful face again.
And do we put you on the spot? Do we put you on the spot, Ross, and you can share some of a quick Spanish word for us?
Because what? I should know. Yeah. I know there's one where the road runner. What does he say?
Arriba.
Yes,
arriba.
Gonzalez or whatever it is.
Yes,
Gonzalez is all right.
All right.
Thank you.
That's
and much love to you both.
Much appreciated.
Thank you.
We'll see you when we go to Melbourne. And thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yes, on Wednesday. So today's what day is today? The 26th, on the 28th. So obviously this is going to be replayed back on Facebook. But this Wednesday, for those that have joined us today, we're also doing, we're going to have the wonderful Gemma Perry, who's going to talk about Om chanting and the power of mantra. Which is awesome.
Excellent.
So for those that want to join that one, Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Yeah, fantastic.
Have a good night. Thank you so much.
Good evening.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
Ciao.